Over and above what we want, we will always get what we need. The divine intelligence within us is greater than any ChatGPT you could ever create. Tapping into that, the infinite source of all that ever is, we have access to that.
Flow is a good place to start. And just from my own personal experience, I've done really well with flow in many areas of my life in different patches. And for the last several years, my life has been very in flow. And for the last year or so, it's kind of changed a lot. There's been a lot more challenges when it comes to getting back into flow. And I know there's a lot changing in the world right now. And there's a lot of changes for me personally. And I've found it a little bit more difficult to find that flow again. So it's perfect to come into this conversation because I'd love to hear your thoughts around flow and perhaps how you find your way into flow in these days.
Yeah, sure. For me also, flow has been a journey and continues to be a journey. There was a little bit of a defining moment for me last year in that I read the amazing book, I don't know whether I'm sure you've come across it, Steve, by Michael Singer, The Surrender Experiment. And I read that book and something deep changed within me. So I've been kind of raving about it. You know, when you read a book and you're just like, oh, this is amazing, and you want to tell everyone. And it's not that I hadn't come across Michael Singer before, because I had. And I was gifted his book, The Untethered Soul, way back in, I don't know, 2017 or something. And so I was familiar with his work. But you know how divine timing shows up and everything suddenly aligns. And it was actually a facilitator who said they just read it was amazing, and that, you know, had I thought about it. And it was one of those moments where, you know, my intuition was on point and I just thought, I really need to explore this, but I don't know why. And I read his book and something changed within me, absolutely, because it's all really about aligning with the flow of life. And there was a theme for me last year around, and I've done lots of work with this over the years, but a deepening of the understanding of letting go of control in my life. And, you know, experiences in my early childhood and growing up led me to, I guess, a bit of a survival strategy, that control for me was something that was really important in my life in order to kind of keep me safe. I had an experience of trauma that kind of led me to, you know, being in fight or flight a lot of my childhood growing up. And so control was a strategy for me. And so there's been this gentle unpeeling of these levels of control that can be very, very subtle. So last year was obviously, must have come to a time in my life where I was ready to release that in a much, much deeper way. And that book was really a catalyst for me in doing more work around that. And so now, you know, when I find myself from that place of self-awareness going back into that place of trying to control the stuff around me, you know, I really check in and let go of that, really intentionally release that need to control and align with, you know, the intelligence of life, the wisdom of nature and the wisdom of the universe and life itself. And it's an art, Steve, isn't it? It really is an art, that it's a constant learning and coming back to that place of self-awareness again. Is like, am I trying to control the outcome? Am I trying to control the circumstances? Okay, I'm going to let go. And when you let go, there is naturally more flow in your life. And I don't know whether you've had that experience too, Steve.
Yeah, it comes up in so many forms. As you were just sharing that, I was thinking about, you know, we started talking about flow, right? And I've always felt that I'm really good at getting into flow.
Yes.
And then you think about different people, places, and situations, and this certain skill sets can change depending on who you're around, where you are. and what's going on in your life. So it's not this generalized thing of I'm just a master at flow and then I just get on with life. Because
Yeah.
like you said about control, one of the things was coming up for me is I think I'm pretty good at letting go of control in general,
Yes.
especially when it's an outside circumstance, maybe just for me. Maybe it's
Yeah.
work, maybe it's something in my personal situation. But I'm just reflecting upon, say, family, for example.
Yeah.
And then as soon as family comes into it, we can often get into this space of, okay, I would like them to behave differently, or they're not doing what I think is best for them. And then all of a sudden that control comes in again, and we want to say, want them to change so that we can feel better. But then there's that energy of control again, when it feels kind of gripping on.
Yeah.
And like I said, when it's just personal, I can recognize that, I can let go so much easier. But when there's a moving part and it keeps coming back in this way, sometimes that journey of unraveling is almost daily. It happens maybe several times a day, and you keep coming back to that space.
Yeah.
So I'm going through some of those moments again. Family is the
Mm.
best teacher for
Oh my
personal
goodness.
growth and letting go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've noticed this myself. My mum, who's now about to be 80 this year, and we've been having some of these conversations, and whenever there's a health challenge or something comes up with a loved one, and with the tool set that we have, the skills that we have, Steve, there's maybe the idea that what can I do to help? How can I intervene? How can I support? How can I soothe the situation? How can I make things better? And that's great, if it's welcomed. And sometimes there's learning for them in that experience. And so sometimes it's about stepping back a little bit and allowing them to go through the experience or the journey that they're going through in a way that honors their growth and their learning, rather than trying to, I guess, rush in and try and make things better. And so it does, there's often situations in life that kind of show up that show you, oh, okay, here's another piece where I'm trying to manage the situation, or I'm trying to make things better, or to help. But actually, when you unpeel the layers, and for me, I can only speak for myself, Steve, but whether this resonates for you, is what I notice is that actually underneath the helping, underneath the desire to make things better, can also be if you're okay, I'm okay scenario. Okay, it soothes my nervous system to know that you're okay. Do you see what I mean? So the desire to help is kind of on the surface, and of course we do. We want to make sure that our loved ones are healthy, well, fit, and that they're enjoying life, that they're happy, they feel fulfilled. Okay, and that's a great goal to have, to be able to support those around you. But underneath that, it's like, what are we getting out of that situation of needing to rush in and help and support? And can we be in that state of flow and being calm and relaxed while others around us are going through challenges? Okay, and maybe they don't want our help. Maybe they are loved ones around us who are not aligned with our way of thinking or the processes that we use. And I see this a lot when I'm teaching, and people, will come to the workshop and say, this is such a beautiful environment to be in because I'm just surrounded by like-minded people. When I go home, I don't have that luxury. And so I don't feel confident or comfortable to talk about the things that are really important to me. So that's kind of another element to it. So I just find it really fascinating to explore that internal dynamic that underpins, our desire to help others as well.
Yeah, and it's really important to have the community so that we can speak a language that we can't generally speak in when we go back to our families or work and things like that. It's especially with PSYCH-K community as one example, I realized it's like a different language.
It is.
So we understand certain processes and how things unravel and how we change programs and beliefs. Not that there aren't other ways of doing it, but because we've done it in a specific way, we can actually have these conversations that we can't have with anyone else at all. And somehow that allows us to just feel more connected and really understand. Here's something really fun coming up for me right now and it's related to you.
Okay.
When I first did the workshop with you, the basic workshop with PSYCH-K, that was one of the best experiences I've ever had. First of all, I've said to people so many times over the years, that is the best money I've ever spent on anything, and it's still true to this day. And I'd slightly digress, but after this workshop, I realized how simple it can be to shift and change programs, beliefs, traumas, all of, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
And I remember wanting to find maybe a solution to a problem of some sort. So I posted a question of, can someone help me to figure out, I can't remember the exact example, but can somebody help me to figure out how to change this problem that I have going on, and how do I approach this? And I remember you posting in the comments something as simple as, what do you want instead? And it was so funny because in that moment, there was this sort of mild trigger of, I want somebody to give me the answer. I want somebody to help me to find that.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful because that really sums up the essence of, say, the word Isumataq, for example, and that knowing that I could give you some answer and jump in and do that, or I can just trust that you have all the wisdom within you, and I have all the time in the world, and so I'm going to drop this question and let that come from within you. And if it causes struggle for a week or 2 weeks or however long, a minute, who knows? I'm comfortable with that because I have no need or desire to jump in to help you, because I already know that you already have the answer within. And it caused me to, of course, look into that. And then it didn't take very long before I saw the beautiful value in that. And then I became more comfortable to just ask that and then just leave it. Because what do I want instead? It caused me to now think about that. And then, of course, I could find the solution with the tools to shift that problem and move ahead with that. So it's just, it's funny.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And I think, it ties in around the community piece that we were talking about as well. Is I think so often we come from a place where we don't believe that we're already whole. We feel like there's something that's broken within us, or something that needs to be fixed, or that we are less than complete, less than whole. And it leads us to searching outside of ourselves for the answer. And by the same measure, if we go back to what we were talking about how important it is to have a community and to be able to speak from the heart and share what it is that we feel aligned with and what we believe in, and what's important to us, that sometimes if we don't feel safe or able to do that, then we're not showing up as whole either. We're not showing up in a place of, this is me, wholehearted, this is all of me. Okay, and that's okay. And if you feel aligned with it, amazing. And if you don't, that's okay. But it's seeing the divinity and the wisdom within whoever we're in the space with, like here today, being able to just see that intelligence, that wisdom, that divinity within each of us, and knowing that we are truly connected. And PSYCH-K certainly for me has helped me to remove some of those layers of conditioning and programming and beliefs that stopped me from showing up, and from that place of being completely whole and being comfortable sharing who I am, And that has been one of the greatest gifts, because, you know, we come into this human life already perfect. We come into this reality perfect. And it's the experiences in life, the layers of conditioning that we gather in the journey that lead us to believe that we are less than that. Okay, so, you know, what I love about PSYCH-K and any process actually that allows you to peel away those layers is it allows you to return to that place of what you are, what you already are, who you truly are, that divinity, that divine spark within, and let go of this understanding or belief that we're less than that spiritual being having a human experience.
Mm. When did it actually begin for you, this journey? Was this kind of awareness always part of your life, or was there a pre-Sharon and a current Sharon?
There was both, really. So I guess when I was much younger, I now know, looking back, that I had a really strong intuition. I had experiences where, I mean, I'm sure that you're the same, Steve. You know, I would think of somebody and then the phone would ring and that would be the person on the phone. Or I would be, you know, walking into town and somebody would cross my mind and then suddenly I'd bump into them. So I had these kind of experiences where I felt very connected and very aligned with my own internal world, my intuition and spirit, I guess. And then experiences, I think, as we all have in life, take us along different paths. And for me, you know, some of the experiences, I had a traumatic experience in childhood that led me to the belief really that the world is not really a safe place. And so from that place, we gather beliefs on top of that. And then when I was 18, I had another real defining moment or experience in my life where I lost my dad very suddenly. Very sadly, he had a brain hemorrhage and he just didn't wake up one morning, hadn't been ill or anything. So that was a huge, huge shock, as you can imagine. I was about to go off to college. And so, you know, my mum and my sister and myself were all in shock in that period of time. And so over the next 6 to 8 months or so, what showed up for me, because I wasn't really able to process that grief immediately, because I found myself in a new set of circumstances, away at college, you know, finding my feet, as you do. I was 18 years old at the time, so still young, finding my way in the world. And so I wasn't able to process that in a healthy way. And what happened next really was that when we're not able to process emotion in a healthy and effective way and allow ourselves that space and time to grieve or to process, then the wisdom of our body so often does it on our behalf. And so what then happened was I became sick. And my body started to show symptoms of, you know, actually there's a lot of stuff in here, a lot of trauma in here that needs to be processed. And so we need to let go of something. I often talk about it a little bit like if you imagine a glass of water and you fill the water to the top and you've still got room. By that point in my life, it was almost like the glass was so full that there was nowhere else for the water to go. And so it gradually started seeping over the sides. And that was, to me, the point where physical symptoms started to show up because something needed to change. And by a series of synchronistic events, really, initially I went down the path of going to the GP, you know, asking, you know, there's something not quite right, numerous tests, and it just kept coming back saying, you know, there's nothing wrong. Maybe it's a virus, maybe it's a post-virus, could be something that will resolve itself, but nobody could give me any answers, right? So I kept going back. It was like a yo-yo. Same answers, you know, another series of tests, there's nothing wrong. So I left the GP surgery this one day, and honestly, Steve, I was at the point where I was thinking, I know there's something wrong with me. This authority figure, or various authority figures, are telling me there's nothing wrong. So the conclusion is I'm going mad. Okay, it must be some mental, emotional thing for me. and there's something wrong with me. So I'm in this place of thinking I'm broken, there's something wrong with me. And I happened to, obviously, in that stage, I became really emotional and didn't really know what to do next. And so I found myself on the doorstep of a friend. You know this story, Steve, I've shared this before. I found this, I was knocking on the door, obviously in floods of tears, came in. My friend said, "Oh my goodness, come in, come in." And in typical English style, she said, "Just grab a seat, I'll go and make a cup of tea." And she just left me, obviously not knowing what to do at all in that moment. And so she did. But what happened was she had a flatmate, and that amazing, beautiful person just sat with me in that moment. And she was one of those people who you all know, you'll have met somebody similar who has that ability to hold space and just listen. Just listen. So here I am saying, I don't know what's wrong, I don't know what's going on, I'm going mad, blah, blah, blah. And she just listened. And when there was a pause in the conversation, she said, "Well, I have this thing, this tool in my toolkit that if you're interested and if you want to know what's going on, we could explore it. We could find out." And I was like, anything. By this point, I just, anything that could have helped or could have given me an answer or a solution. We talked about looking outside of ourselves, didn't we? I was at a loss. I did not know what was going on. And I hadn't made the connection between the grief and the physical symptoms by this point in my life, really. So she said, "Okay, if you just stand up for a second, raise your arm out to the side," and you and I know that what was about to happen was muscle testing. Okay, so it wasn't PSYCH-K at that particular time in my life. It was just muscle testing to use as a kind of almost a diagnostic tool, really, just which is not the way we use it in PSYCH-K, but just trying to gather some information to connect with my subconscious mind to really find out what was going on. And so doing a series of tests, which to me was completely new and mind-blowing, that you could get this information, you could receive this information from inside of yourself, this information, this wisdom, and have answers. And so through a series of tests, we determined what was underpinning the physical situation, physical condition. It wasn't the initial grief, but it was something that happened in the past. And she was able to tell me and deliver that information. And it was mind-blowing, Steve, in that moment. Now, it took me, even the knowing, so even, activating or accessing that wisdom within me, immediately alleviated some of the physical symptoms for me. So it shifted stuff, even just the knowing, which again is amazing. That insight, that wisdom to be able to join the dots was immense. And then it took me maybe 2 or 3 years, probably a couple of years actually, before I found a way to address some of that physical stuff. And that was through finding a homeopath. Which opened a door to me of a different way of looking at ourselves holistically, from a perspective of being whole, not just dissecting and addressing physical symptoms or taking a pill and solving a problem in that way. Okay, it wasn't like that. It was taking into account every part of me, my physical health, my mental, emotional state, what made things better, worse, what was unique to me around this physical symptom, rather than a label that said, here's the label, here's the solution, take this. And then, it may or may not help. For homeopathy, it started, I think must have been about a really gentle 5-year journey for me of working with an amazing homeopath that gently unpicked a lot of stuff in my childhood, the grief, of course, and really connected me back to my innate health, which is always within us. It's always there, and we're always able to access no matter what's going on. Okay. And so that was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And so around that time, maybe in my early 20s, I think probably, I guess you could call it a bit of a spiritual awakening, in those kind of late teens, early 20s. And it unlocked within me this desire to search for other things that I had not encountered before. If we can be seen as whole, if we can address these physical symptoms, mental, emotional states in a different way, gosh, this has like opened a whole new way of viewing the world. And, we're talking sort of early 90s, that kind of era. And so this wasn't talked about in the same way that it is these days. It wasn't so available, I guess is the right word to look at it. So this explorative journey for me opened up so many different doorways of exploring and reading and, encountering lots of different methodologies, processes, different ways of working. And I loved it. I absolutely adored it. So yeah, it's a real spiritual awakening really for me. And then I was so impressed with my experience with homeopathy that I decided that I was going to train to become a homeopath. And that was kind of the next piece of my journey. But what's fascinating, I think, is when we talk about coming back to that place of control, just to give you some context. I guess that in my early days of working with clients and helping and supporting others, there really was an element of rescuer there, I have to say. And probably if I look back in hindsight, maybe because I wasn't able to help my dad, maybe there was other things related to experiences in childhood. But I mean, certainly being able to change some of those beliefs and programs, to be able to have healthy boundaries, to be able to support people in a way where now you and I know in working with PSYCH-K, we really are aligned with this idea that the person, the partner we're working with, already has the answers, already has the wisdom within them. It's not about us trying to fix somebody or to give them the solution. The opposite is the case. Absolutely.
And I think there's this deep innate knowing within all of us.
Yeah.
When you hear these quotes or statements that says that the key is within you, or you already have the answers, there's something within us that knows, no matter who you are.
Yes.
We can still have a resistance to that. No, I don't
Sure.
want to know that because I have to do the work,
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
for a lot of people, how do they actually begin to tap into that ability to find that within them?
Well, I guess there are a number of different ways. Maybe meditation could be for some people. And I think one of the things is it's really important to find your way. And for me, it certainly has been what has felt like quite a long journey, to finding my way. And along that journey, which has been beautiful and exactly as it's meant to have been, I've gathered skills and tools and understanding and ways of working that work for me. So I think first it's probably about, find a way that works for you and that you feel aligned with. But now, honestly, knowing PSYCH-K and knowing what you and I know, like honestly, I think the easiest way is to be able to remove those layers, those beliefs around and open up possibility and potential for what is possible, because we can feel like our beliefs are a truth, right? And that's not really the case, okay? Because the majority of beliefs that we've taken on, we've inherited from somewhere else, from someone else. And they're a program that are running that as if they are true, okay? But when we start to think about, well, something in my life is not working anymore, there's typically a belief or a program that's underpinning it. We can change that. New possibility opens up in a way that it wasn't there before. So for me now, the PSYCH-K is absolutely my go-to in any of those situations. But I think it really is important to share, because it's certainly been my journey, and I'm sure it has been with you, Steve, is that find a way that works for you. We're not here today advocating PSYCH-K is the only way. No, of course not. But find some way where you can access that inner wisdom and be able to let go of any of those beliefs or programs that are no longer serving you, or that are telling you a goal that you want to achieve or something you want to experience in life is not possible. Okay, let go of that if you can, in any way.
Makes me want to dive into the topic of simplicity.
Oh,
because,
absolutely.
because like yourself, as soon as I discovered that it was possible to take some sort of charge of my life and
Yeah.
have that realization, I am actually creating my reality, then I started finding different tools, and I've done that for many years, 10 plus years, nearly 15 years. And so many things have really, really helped me along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that can really confuse the situation unnecessarily sometimes is this overcomplicated idea of you have to go step by step doing this thing over here, and it's linear, it's complicated, and doesn't necessarily work for everyone, or in the sense of the way we process information sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
For example, theta healing is something that I've come across, and I found it to be, it's cool, it's powerful. I liked it. I enjoyed studying it. But there were aspects to it that didn't work for me so well because I don't visualize. And you need to kind of be able to visualize with that
Mm-hmm.
more, generally speaking. So it's a little bit more difficult. Plus, I found that the languaging and the respect of someone's space and really honoring that they have the answers within them, there was something lacking in the teaching from the fundamental level. Now, that's not to say that an individual wouldn't have those strong values and hold these, but that's just one example of some of the tools that not. It's great, but to me it felt a little bit too complicated, and not. It doesn't necessarily need to be that complicated. And there is now, in this day and age, there are so many different modalities. Everyone's creating a new modality every week about something else. They get information from here, and then they go, oh, I'm going to improve upon it. I'm going to make it here, and I'm going to put it in a language that other people understand. And sometimes it feels like it just overcomplicates the whole situation.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're very overwhelmed with what's right and what can work. And it puts me to this idea that we often give too much power to the tool itself, rather
Yes.
than what you're saying is it's already within us.
Yeah.
Now, having a hammer and a nail to put up a shelf or, put up a picture is helpful to have that tool.
Simplicity is, again, something for me that is central to the work that I do these days. Hasn't always been the case. Okay. If I go back to, when I was a practicing homeopath, and especially in the early days, it required a lot of head work. Okay. A lot of intellectual, trying to find the remedy, finding the right remedy, and the pressure and responsibility that I took on board in order to do that was a huge learning curve for me, because I'd come from this place of growing up where I was, and still am, I really value my intuitive. And so I kind of arrived at a bit of a crossroads with homeopathy, whereby my intuition and my intellect kind of were in conflict a little bit. And so I would work really hard to find the right remedy to be able to prescribe for whatever was going on. And sometimes had some amazing results, sometimes less so. And I remember a teacher of mine at the time saying, okay, there's a reason why it's a practice and the person we're working with is a patient. So the patient is patient while we're practicing. And I was like, is that what they're coming for us to practice? And are they paying for us to practice? And it felt a little bit like on them at the time. And so I guess when I look back, I know that I would never have continued to work in that way of using intellect. At the time, it maybe satisfied my ego a little bit. Complexity often does that, fills that hole of maybe lacking in self-esteem in some way. So it's like, the more difficult this is, the more intelligent it makes me look. And that really wasn't who I was, but I recognize a little bit of that, the ego within us all. So when I came across PSYCH-K, honestly, or even muscle testing, because the bit in between was, I came across muscle testing again. So it's almost like full circle when my son was born. So I was a newly qualified homeopath working with clients and doing okay, learning through the process. But my son, when we started to wean him with food, we realized that, there was something that was not quite right. And he would be sick quite often, typically once a month, every month, with kind of a respiratory infection. And so I kind of identified, I think there's something around food here going on. And so, long story short, I had him tested in the traditional way, so pinprick tested. Information came back. I looked at all the list of stuff that he was reacting to, responding to, and I was like, this is not okay. Like, I can't take these big food groups out. How will he grow? How will he thrive? So I needed to find another way. So back I am with my seeker hat on, looking for solutions. Being a newly qualified homeopath, I was doing my best detective work to try and find what was the right remedies to be able to support him. And again, a little breadcrumb along the trail that course corrected my life was I came across a company that offered ways to work with homeopathy that could desensitize food intolerances, sensitivities. And so I started to go and explore down that route. And when I phoned them up, the guy who answered the phone turned out to be the person who owns the company, who I since found out never answers the phone, which is fascinating. So it was meant to be the conversation that day, an amazing company called New Vistas in Ireland. And he said, Sharon, you need to learn muscle testing. You need not, it would be nice to, or try exploring this as a direction. You need to learn muscle testing. There's a course in London, a couple of weeks, just go and learn it, and it will give you all the answers you're looking for. So we come full circle back to, the wisdom is in the person you're working with. So when I learned muscle testing in terms of prescribing homeopathic remedies that way, oh my goodness, it changed all of that intellectual, I need to work out and I need to work hard with all my books to try and find the right remedy. No, suddenly I was able to communicate with his system. His subconscious could tell me exactly what was going on, where the blocks were in the body, what was underpinning them, mental, emotional, physical, allergy, structural, whatever was going on, and what he needed in what order. Now, this was a massive level of trust for me, because some of the homeopathic remedies that came up as kind of a solution were remedies I'd never heard of, remedies I've never worked with. So I needed a level of trust to say, okay, well, let's give it a go. Okay, with phenomenal results. So the more I was leaning into using muscle testing, the more I was seeing the results, the more I was blown away, the less I had my head in my books trying to find intellectually the solution or the remedy. Okay. And it was working amazingly well. So at that point, I was really happy with my practice. I wasn't looking for anything else at all. I had people traveling from, quite a distance to come and see me, because nobody was really working in this way. And again, another little breadcrumb course corrected my life. I was really happy. And there was a lady who I'd met on the course in London who emailed me one day and said, look, Sharon, I'm doing this course. I think you'll find it really interesting. Let me know if you want to come. But there was so much going on in my life at the time, and I wasn't looking for something else. The last thing I wanted to do at that moment in time was go to a workshop. But the universe had other ideas, and I came back to that email in a moment in time where I just thought, just clear out my inbox. And there was a little YouTube clip at the bottom of that video. And so many people come to PSYCH-K through Bruce Lipton. And whenever people come to the workshop, we hear Bruce's name all the time. Bruce Lipton, the amazing, amazing author of Biology of Belief. So if you haven't explored him and his work, I'm sure we both encourage people to do so, Steve. So for me, that wasn't the case. For me, it was Rob Williams, the originator of PSYCH-K, and this little YouTube clip that I watched. I think it was maybe, 3 minutes or something. And I watched it, and there was something that happened in that moment. And by this point, my intuition was stronger than it had ever been. So I knew when I have these moments of knowing, I knew I had to follow through. Like every cell in my body in that moment lit up. It was like this, pay attention to this. So I skipped back to the information and it was like, oh, when is it happening? Tomorrow. Okay, it's in Birmingham, which is a distance for me because I live in Leeds. So it required childcare and I was having work done at home at the time with bills in the house and stuff. But against all odds, I was there. And that was my first experience of PSYCH-K. At that point, it was a 2-day workshop, the PSYCH-K Basic Foundational in-person workshop. And honestly, Steve, it completely and utterly changed my life. I never really, I think at that point, intended to use it with clients, but I just generally started just day by day, just peeling a belief a day or just working with a balance, which is the change process, and just gently peeling away the layers. And my life just started to change in the most amazing and magical ways, just by doing little and often was moving mountains. So now when I talk about, you said defining moments in your life, for me, it was like my life is in 2 parts. Sharon before PSYCH-K and Sharon after PSYCH-K. And I worked with it, gradually introducing it with clients. And then I guess I was working with it for such a long time and then eventually committed to teaching it in 2017. So 2008 was when I first encountered PSYCH-K, and 2017 when I started to teach it when I was certified. But yeah, the complexity, and I think even PSYCH-K was more complicated than it is now when I first learned it. But I think coming back to that original point, kind of a long way around to the story, but I think really what I learned with PSYCH-K and what my life has become with PSYCH-K has been a gentle peeling away of the complexity, whatever it was that was giving the complexity was giving me. And now my practice and the way that I work and the way that I support others and even my teaching, is still always evolving to a place of even greater simplicity. And I fundamentally value simplicity over complexity. I think that's where it's always heading.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said just a moment ago, it was the teachings was more complex back in the day than it is now. Yes. I think there's something to be said around where the collective is as well, to what we can understand, our mindsets and, the technology in that moment and our awareness. That language was probably perfect, which is that's quote that you shared with me, and I use that as almost a teacher, a guidance for the last 7 years or something like this. Everything should be made as simple as possible, but no simpler.
Exactly.
And that always teaches me. I'm always getting new information about what that means. That statement in itself is extremely simple. And yet there's layers and layers and layers of wisdom in what that means. And there's a complexity. It was as simple as it needed to be in that moment. But as more people became aware of how fast you can go from A to B to transform, okay, less language is needed because more and more people are tuning into this space. And I would love to see where it will be in 10 years' time, to see how the language might change in certain areas and what things might be refined in certain areas. So it's always evolving. And I love that because that's life. And simplicity is a great value of mine as well. That's why I do Wing Chun martial arts. It's all about going from A to B in the quickest form, which is a straight line. And you're basically getting yourself into that position, being relaxed and going from A to B as quick as possible. So it all aligns for me. I love simplicity. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's a continual work in progress. You know, in any of the work that we do, there isn't really a destination, is there? You know, if we're looking to arrive somewhere, then we've missed a trick, because it's the evolution really of not only simplicity, but the evolution of our knowing, our understanding, our interaction with others. And that's the beauty. That's where the beauty is. If we're hurrying to get to somewhere, to get to a destination, then I think we miss the beauty along the way.
And that leads me to divine timing and Bruce Lipton.
Yes.
All the things that you're sharing. So when I'll try and keep it short, but when I first discovered about PSYCH-K, I realized, well, I had a lot of lessons during that period. So I was always studying different ways to transform my mind, become more at peace, all of the above. And I would do it diligently every day, all the time, whatever tools I had. And EFT was one of the tools I had at that moment. And that was very significant in my life as well. I don't really use it anymore, but it was back then. And I realized I was one day I was reading Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept opening the pages and I was reading the first few chapters and I could not read at all. My subconscious was like making me tired. I couldn't get past the paragraph. I'd repeat it over and over. And I literally just put the book down at some point. I can't read this. I don't know what it is, but it's impossible. I love his work. I listen to him all the time, but his book I can't read. Now, 2 years later, after that experience, I happened to be in London for this consciousness convention, you know, with Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza, Lynn McTaggart, Bruce Lipton. And there was 1,000 people in that room. Somebody else was speaking, and I just went out to go to the toilet. The corridor was empty. I walked down, and on my way back, I was going back through the door, and right there at the door, Bruce Lipton was sat there with another woman, just having a conversation, just a general friendly conversation. But they were in something very interesting. They were, you know, I could tell that it wasn't personal, that he was sharing something fascinating. And I just went over and said, "Do you mind if I just listen in?" You know, so I stood there and said, "Yeah, no problem." So he continued talking, and I was fascinated by what he was sharing. And then a few seconds later, he got up and he started talking about, "Oh, did you know that does anyone here?" Oh, because then a couple of other people turned up and they said, can I listen in as well?" So we made our little micro conference there. He then went on to share, "Do you know how you can change beliefs in a matter of minutes?" And he then showed just the sort of the action. Didn't show any sort of details, but he just showed, "Oh, there's a thing called muscle testing and all this." So I was really fascinated by that. And after that information, I went back into the room and just got on with the conference. What I realized about that situation was that as soon as he told me that information and I discovered the name of this modality, PSYCH-K, I know myself. And when I find something that I'm going to love, I will dive in and there is nothing to stop me. And I would just be a one-track mind and I'll be on everything I can find to figure this out and to learn it myself. And so in that moment, I realized how, on another level, how powerful our subconscious mind is, superconscious mind, whatever was at play during that moment of me reading that book. Actually, I know from my experience that something was stopping me, making me tired. I could not read that book. Now, I came to realize later on that one of the last things he mentions in that book is PSYCH-K. So if I'd have got to the end of that book, I would have read about PSYCH-K, and guess what? I would have started to study it. Yeah. And I realized that those 2 years was very important for me for what I needed to learn with the tools that I had, with my connection with how energy works, how emotions work, how it can shift and change. Divine timing was perfect, on point, of course, as always. As soon as I found it beautifully from the man himself, Bruce Lipton. And of course, as soon as that happened, I was obsessed. Now, I won't go into the next part of the story, but I was trying to look for workshops and I couldn't see any. I came to realize there were some around September when I was looking. But again, I couldn't see. I was looking on the website, couldn't see them at all. I finally saw them in April or March, which was the first workshop with you. So it's funny, there was almost blinkers blinding me from seeing there was workshops available back then when I was looking, but I couldn't see them.
Wow.
Perfect timing was those several months later to allow me to just use that curiosity to learn a little bit more. So anyway, there's so much to that story for me of how divine timing works, and there's no forcing it. It's going to happen when it happens, and it was perfect.
No, I absolutely adore that story, Steve, because, there's been times when people come to workshops and say, gosh, maybe in their 50s or 60s or whatever, and say, if only I had known this 20 years ago. And I always say, no, no, now is the perfect time. Divine timing has brought you here because you are ready and because it's the perfect moment in time to experience this. But it's such a beautiful example, Steve, of how that showed up for you when you were ready, and they're just like, no, not yet, no, not yet, no, not yet, now. And then you were able to follow through because you didn't have any issue with taking action at all. It was just about the timing. And it was an absolute honor and privilege that you came, and that you came to one of my workshops, and it was the first experience, because you will also know, we both know, don't we, whenever you are at a PSYCH-K event, no matter what the workshop is, what level you're working at, the synchronicities in the room are always there. Always, whether we see them or not, whether we see why that group of people have assembled in that moment in time to be able to learn PSYCH-K. And it's probably the same with anything, any experience, any event. But I go in with a sense of curiosity always, because I love seeing when the synchronicities start to show up. There might be themes or, similar backgrounds, or, it's fascinating, really. But there was always, the synchronicities are always there. Yeah. In alignment.
And it also makes me want to just focus a little on that aspect where I was reading the book and my system was going so tired, when you're falling asleep almost.
Yeah.
There's wisdom in that.
Yeah.
And how many times does that happen in our lives, that we may be going for a job or trying to do something and we find our energy just shift and get heavy or tired, and we try to push through it and no, I need to, because of control, for example, and we need to try and control our lives. No, I've decided this, and so therefore I need to make it happen. And our deep wisdom and intelligence is saying, I'm showing you here that this is how your system will respond to that thing if you achieve it anyway. So I'm just warning you right now that you could just listen to this and say, okay, this is not right for me. Focus on something else, and all of a sudden your energy lights up, and then go towards that. I think we have these options to listen to that wisdom pretty much every single day of our lives. And that's been a great teacher for me, because I don't get it perfect all the time, but I do often sense that energy, that shift in energy, and know that's how my intuition works. Oh, if it feels lighter and it wakes me up, I kind of know that's a great way to step. If it makes me heavy and lethargic, okay, maybe that's not actually right for me right now. And so that's a simple thing. We don't need any tool for that, really. We just need to be aware of those signals.
Yeah, and to listen to
That's the key. That's the key. Yeah, because you could get it and then not listen to it. So you're right.
Exactly, and respond from that place, and know that it's not something you're doing wrong. Hear these beautiful themes that are showing up in this amazing conversation we're having. Is the themes are coming up, back to flow, back to letting go of control, tuning in, being aligned with our intuition, listening, responding from that place, knowing that we're whole, knowing that we have all the answers already, tuning in, and knowing that whatever message you're getting in whatever form, whether it's physicality, I'm feeling tired, okay, I'm going to give myself permission to just either lean in and get curious and explore what's behind that and listen to the message, or to just let it go for now and come back to it. Yeah, we get to have a choice, don't we? But it's that cultural, hustle attitude where we're rewarded for pushing through or working harder and actually and being complex, and it's changing that whole paradigm and letting go of any beliefs that we have around, within us that value that or feel that we should. I often talk about, the shoulds, those internal shoulds. I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And I laugh and say, we're shoulding all over ourselves all the time. Listen to that inner voice, stop that, and reframe it. Even without PSYCH-K or anything else, you can reframe that. Okay, instead of I should, I choose to, or I don't. Okay, it's a gift that I'm able to, or I don't want to do that today. And how can I achieve my goal in a different way that's not pushing, not hustling, not working harder, but smarter, and using the intelligence that we have within us to be our guiding force. That you mentioned it, Steve, that superconscious mind, our higher self, whatever you want to call it. In PSYCH-K, we kind of refer to it as our superconscious mind, but that part of us that can be our guiding compass, that can support us with direction. When we consciously think with limited information, this is the direction I'm going, our superconscious has so much more information. And I think the other thing as well, Steve, that I just wanted to share as well in what you were talking about and reading the Bruce Lipton book as well, is that we both know, and I value so much, that there is a step within the PSYCH-K process whereby we check in with that part of us, that superconscious mind. So we never assume that the direction we want to head in, if we're making a change, we never assume that it's okay to make that change. We will always, always check in. And sometimes at that step when we check, it's not okay. We need to stop. We need to pause. We need to get curious. We need to think about, okay, there's something I'm not seeing here. And then that also allows that wisdom to reveal itself, which might then adjust the goal that we're working with. And so, that also is a beautiful piece around the timing thing as well sometimes. So, I love that. These are the things that set PSYCH-K aside from, other ways of working, and make it a really non-invasive process for change, having those kind of safety catchers, because what we think we want consciously, there are so many times prior to PSYCH-K that I would think I want something, I'd head in that direction, I'd arrive at what I thought was the result, and then I'd think, do you know what, this wasn't what I wanted at all. Actually, this was the opposite of what I wanted. And this is another beautiful aspect of how we work with PSYCH-K, is knowing that over and above what we want, we will always get what we need. Say it again, over and above what we want, we will always get what we need. Okay, from that bigger picture level, and to support our own evolution in this lifetime and beyond. So, these are things that I love, absolutely love. And, these days, PSYCH-K is the only thing I ever tend to use. Occasionally, if my family have maybe an acute thing going on, a cough, a cold, something like that, or maybe prescribe a remedy. But, with those who I work with professionally, only PSYCH-K. It's phenomenal. How about you? Do you have a mix of toolkits still, or?
It's the same for me. I have lots, and I'm still curious, and I'll still read, and I'll still learn
me
other
too.
things. But I just find myself, this is what I work with when I'm working with people, and it's pretty much what I work with when I'm working with myself as well.
Exactly.
I still practice and do other things too, but when it's a one-to-one, it's just this, because it's there. It's, to me, now that AI and ChatGPT's around, just this realization that that's what it feels like to me. It literally feels like I've got my own ChatGPT right here, and all I'm doing is just going inside and just typing what I want. I'm like,
And then it shows up.
you are a genius. I want you to help me to figure out this thing and change my belief around this. And
I love that.
because the technology is so sharp and fast, that's why I use this process all
Yeah.
the time, is because it's not about PSYCH-K itself, but what it provides is that the journey from A to B is so fast because it goes straight into the operating system using the communication, and then we just press enter basically, and then we allow these bigger parts of our mind to just do the work for us.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like. So it's kind of giving it the commands,
Yeah.
taking a moment, and then allowing those shifts to occur. So it's so fast.
It's
Why not?
amazing. It's amazing. And it's like, you know, with AI, it's a wonderful, wonderful tool, isn't it? It's incredible. And it's learning more and more at the speed of light. And the question is, in this defining moment, are we going to give our power away to it? Or will it remain a useful tool? And, you know, it's coming back to that place of, you know, we've said it so many times, but the divine intelligence within us is greater than any chat GPT you could ever create. And tapping into that, the infinite source of all that ever is, has been, and will be, we have access to that, right? You know, we are all connected. We are all connected to that source of wisdom and intelligence. But again, it comes back to, do we listen? Do we practice tapping into that? And do we use it? We're on this path right now where these are such interesting times, aren't they? And the choices we make, the decisions we make going forward are really going to have such a huge effect. But I think one of the key things that I love about teaching PSYCH-K and sharing PSYCH-K is just that concept. Come back to self. Walk that path home back to yourself, and know that that infinite source of wisdom is available to you at any given time, and let go of seeking outside of yourself. I mean, we all do on occasion, we all do, but it's the level of giving our power away. It's the level of wanting somebody else to give us the answer or give us the solution to whatever's going on, whatever we need in our life at the time. Coming back. And the other thing I think that's important to share alongside this as well, Steve, is quiet time. Being able to, you know, our young people growing up in this distracted, busy world, plugged into technology, coming back to the place of learning how to be still. And again, that sounds so simple, doesn't it? But do we, each of us individually, create time regularly to be still and to be quiet? Because, you know, if we don't create time to do that, are we going to listen? Are we going to be able to hear or see the synchronicities that show up in our day-to-day life, the magic, if we're not looking for them, if we're not listening for them?
I feel that this time that we're in right now is 2025. The last couple of years have just been exponentially different and transformative.
Absolutely.
It blows my mind because I've spent so many years doing so much inner work that you get to a certain platform and you feel like, all right, I'm good.
And then
and
something
all of a sudden, the world just keeps on shifting. Time seems to be getting smaller,
Oh,
speeding up. There's
you're
sort of
so
less
right.
openness and space, and so we have to create that. And I've actually come across many challenges like that. You know,
Yeah,
one
me
of my
too.
biggest teachers was finding silence in chaotic spaces.
Yeah.
I use that as a practice all the time. I would meditate in the middle of cafes and on trains and stuff like that, very
Love
specifically, because
it.
I knew my mind would go to places like, people are looking at me, they're judging me, they're wondering what am I doing with my eyes closed and all this. And so I just sit there and go, I don't care, and I'm just going to stay here. Then I'd hear a plate crashing and babies crying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I managed to find this way of maintaining peace in chaos. And now there's a new challenge of, we're so bombarded with the companies know what they're doing, and they know
Yeah.
what they're aiming for. So you've got the social media platforms. They do it very on purpose to make it addictive, that you keep coming back to that. So it's almost like we've got this constant knocking on our brains, just stimulus.
Yeah.
And the thought of going out into peace, to nature, is like, yes, I need that. But then the FOMO kicks in. Oh, yeah, but what if I miss out on something? If maybe there's a post, or maybe there's something I need, or maybe I need to listen to something over here, and that pull can draw us back. And so we have to really tune in and take a bit of discipline sometimes, and say, you know what, I'm just going to go outside. I know it's right for me. I know my body's screaming, saying, no, it's easier here listening to this and scrolling through all of this. Do you have any advice on how to help somebody in that situation to just choose and go and find that space and that peace?
A discipline is part of it. And underneath that is knowing how important it is for our physical bodies, for our physical and mental and emotional well-being, to be able to take time and to be able to rest, from this craziness that we're in right now. One of the things I'm practicing this year is aligning much more with the cycles of the seasons and nature. So one of the things I'm doing is, in my newsletters this year, is I'm really focusing on what nature is showing us. Okay, so often in January, for example, I was writing around, everybody's talking, the message that we're bombarded with is change, new you, all of that stuff, New Year's resolutions. And everything within me was telling me the opposite. Yeah, and I had this last year and I had this the year before. And I wrote a blog about it, in terms of, the calendar changed. And the start of the year used to be, in years gone by, used to be March, when new growth is starting, and the calendar sort of changed so that the new year started in January. I think it was the Romans, the Byzantians, as I wrote all about it and researched. It was fascinating. So alongside aligning with the wisdom of nature, which is something we teach in terms of downloading the programs that align you with that, everything from collaboration to diversity to, more is not always better, that we learn, when we're at the workshop, at the basic foundational workshop. This year I've taken it even deeper, and I've been taking my cues from, okay, what's nature showing us right now? And I was just writing a newsletter around, now's the time for planting seeds. Yeah. But when we plant seeds, we don't expect that plant to grow overnight, do we? It takes time. And so understanding patience, being patient with ourselves, thinking about this time of year when we're looking around us, what seeds are ready to be planted? What do I feel aligned with? But not in a pushing way, not in a driving forward quickly way, but in a gentle starting point that you can lean in and that you can start to water them. And so that's something I'm really, really taking my cue from this year. I bought, interestingly enough, an almanac, which this year has been really fascinating. So I'm looking at, what's happening on a planetary level, and the stars, what's happening in the seasons. There's a little bit of history in there, and I'm loving really diving into some of that and connecting on a much deeper level with the rhythms and the cycles of nature. And part of that, in terms of how do you carve that stillness time out, is that in order to observe what's going on in nature, you have to get out in nature. You have to be quiet. You have to take a walk, and you need to observe rather than having a podcast I love doing that too. I love having a walk and listening to podcasts or, audiobooks and things. But making sure that I have time where I go out and have a walk, and there's none of that. It's listening to the birds. It's watching the birds building their nests. Okay, it's watching the lambs in the fields. And if you are able to get out in nature, if you can, even if it's a local park, if you live in the city, just notice what's happening. And I think that creates not only the connection with nature, but it creates that stillness for yourself. Some of the best ideas that drop in for me is when I'm in that space, that creativity, where you're open to new possibility in a way that you're not when you're sat at your desk and you're distracted and you've got notifications popping up and to-do lists and all of that stuff. It's so important, and I think more important now than ever, because of the society we live in and how distracting it is. Everything's fighting for our attention, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So actually, I feel like it's fundamental. It's not even a nice to have anymore. It's a fundamental need to be able to unplug, disconnect, and be still.
Yeah, the principles of nature that you spoke about, they have been fundamental to my life. And I'm glad you brought it up, because I was learning about the laws of the universe some years before I came across the very specific, beautifully laid out programs that we can reprogram using PSYCH-K. And that has changed my life in so many ways. Just brought a sense of peace into my whole system on a fundamental level there. And I've been able to use that time and time again in different situations as well. So it's absolutely amazing to be able to go with that flow, but not in a way that we have to intellectualize and try and figure it out. But we actually just like we'd click on this. There's something up here on my computer right now. It says, update. It's offering me to update something. So I could click on that and it will update this thing. I don't need to do anything. And then everything runs a bit smoother. It's the same with that program, going through these principles of nature, realigning with that, and then just walking out into life and feeling this sense of softness and peace and ease. And as you said, when you go out and look and just watch nature, you just see, it's just like, oh, it's time for hard work for the birds. They're working hard. And there'll be a time where it's not. I love listening to the Tao Te Ching, and especially read by Wayne Dyer. I've listened to that so many times. It's those words in that book speak so much truth to me, because that's what that's all about, really, as well. It's about the principles of nature. And there's a time for being ahead. There's a time for being behind. There's a time for being in stress. There's a time for being at peace. And unless we have those subconscious programs to remind ourselves of this truth, then we can be fighting against it the whole time. So even if that was the only thing I was to get out of learning everything from PSYCH-K and all of this wisdom, that would be worth it. Just that alone would be worth it.
Definitely. And it's being willing as well, I think, Steve, to go against the grain of what is happening or what appears to be happening outside of us, of course. In the chaos, it's about coming back and being okay with being in our flow, even if it's not what everybody else appears to be doing. So, in January, if everybody's signing up to the gym and doing all that stuff and pushing hard and trying to achieve their goals, if we're in a place of hibernation and stillness, it's being okay with that, honoring our own internal rhythm and what feels in alignment for us, rather than not honoring that, coming back to that space. So that's our own internal flow for sure. But honestly, the more I learn about nature, the more I see the intelligence in nature, and I'm always learning, new things and sharing them, when I'm teaching a little bit about the principles of nature. And I love that kind of section in the workshop, because by that point in the workshop, the basic workshop, we have learned everything in order to change our own programs. We've got all the tools in our toolkit to be able to do that. And we've understood how we can help ourselves. So, working from that place of self-help. And so then once we have all of that, we understand how it works, why it works, we've got it in our toolkit to be able to make any changes that are important to us. It's that bridge between ourselves and the bigger picture. So I'm working in a much more global way, because as much as we integrate these principles of nature into our own subconscious, so it becomes our operating system, by the same measure, the ripple effect that goes beyond us is also profound. And here is where we're able to make a difference in a bigger way. They look like goal statements that we would work with individually, personal goal statements, but the intention is very different behind them. They're intended to be a bridge between our own personal lives and the evolution that we're in right now, this rapid evolution. Like one of them, if we just pick out one of them, adaptation, okay, the one thing that we can count on is change. And as you said, it's like, yeah, you do some work and then you think, yeah, I'm okay for the moment. And then something else, comes up and you're like, wow, this feels relentless. But honestly, if we are good with adaptation, and if we're able to adapt effectively, if we're able to be still in the eye of the storm, you're in a train station, you're able to meditate. Wow. To be able to be adaptable to our environment is such a superpower in itself, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than being buffered, by a storm that's passing through, imagine a tornado or something, and you're just buffered around. If we can be still in that moment, anything is possible.
So many things flow through every time you share something. I've got like a big list of things that I want to talk
We'll
about.
have to come back, Steve.
But I feel that there's this connection. Yeah, we can do that for sure. But there is definitely a connection, because it's all connected.
Yes.
I think about this journey of mine about learning how to change my mind. It started with, okay, I just need to go through, say, this burning anger feeling inside my body. And that was just a catalyst emotionally to get me to find tools to help me with that. As I did, then I realized, wow, I can do so much more with this. This is great. And then we get into this space of, let me see if I can help and improve my success, or improve my financial situation, or improve my relationships, XYZ, health, blah, 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 all of that. And as you said earlier on in the conversation, there's almost this sense of we make these changes and then realize, oh, that's not exactly it.
Yeah.
My life's improved, absolutely. Things have gotten better and this is great, but it's this journey that never ends. And then I just came across this statement through yourself, and also Duccio, and a truth that I already knew, but it just summed it up in a way that made a lot of sense in that moment. It was this whole journey of self-help, or this achieving goals and being able to have this egoic sense of, oh, I've improved. I was trying to figure out, why do I do this? And it's effortless. I'm not trying to do this. It's just, I know it's an innate part of myself. And then I realized that was the goal. The goal was not all of these different things, but the goal was really just self-realization. All I was doing was just finding this space. Again, you spoke about a little while ago, this feeling of alignment when we get in tune with nature. There's this softness. We all know it. There's this moment, whether it's often or not, we all know that feeling. And that is, keep coming back to that. We tend to be able to move forward so much more gracefully in life. And that's really what my goal is just self-realization. What do you think about that?
Me too. And it's becoming more and more important for me as I'm moving along, is really coming from that place of being in alignment, knowing that we are all so interconnected. It's beautiful having this conversation today, Steve, with you, because, the interconnection between, I am you, you are me kind of thing, recognizing that, the conversation is just able to flow, and that wisdom is able to just reveal itself. I mean, I love that you call the podcast Isumataq. We're just allowing, aren't we, the wisdom to reveal itself. But coming from that place of self-realization, when we realize we are spiritual beings having a human experience and we're all interconnected, when you look at the world, and I don't watch the news, I'm sure that you don't either. I haven't for many years now, but I'm aware of what's going on in the world. And when you think about things where, parts of the world where there's wars and fighting and, sadness, and why, if we were all coming from the place of understanding that we're all interconnected, then that would be so much more difficult to behave in those ways. Because if I'm hurting somebody else, I'm hurting myself. Yeah, if I'm hurting the planet and nature because we're interconnected with nature too, then I'm hurting myself. So self-realization, I think the journey to self-realization is a constant deepening of understanding of that. And the more of us who can wake up and start to follow that path, the more we won't need tools and processes. I aspire to a world that we live in where we don't need PSYCH-K, we don't need other methodologies and processes, because we are aligned with nature, with the flow of life. We listen to our intuition. We're on that journey of self-realization where we're kind to each other, we're accepting, we celebrate diversity and our individual uniqueness, but knowing that, we are so interconnected. So, I mean, when I think about sharing PSYCH-K, often I will say, especially working in that more global, bigger picture way, some of it for me is selfish. I really want my kids to grow up in a world that I aspire it to be. And the more of us who internalize, for example, the principles of nature, or do our work to let go of the conditioning that is so outdated, it's come through ancestrally through the line because our parents did what they felt was the right thing to do. They did their best with what they had, passes down the line. But it's almost like here we have an opportunity where we can draw a line in the sand and say, okay, we're creating something different going forward. We honor what brought us here, we honor our past experiences, and we choose, fundamentally, we choose to create something different. So one of the things I'm really passionate about, and have been for the past couple of years, is to support, facilitators, coaches, practitioners, because at the moment we're all working to support this ripple effect in the world, right? But we're also feeling some of the dynamic adaptability and the changes that we've just described, the things that the inner work that we're doing ourselves while supporting others. Sometimes it can feel like, God, there's more and more and more going on. But to be able to support those, and I like to think of them as visionaries and change makers. So those who are working hard in the world or aligning, let's not talk about hard, let's talk about alignment and doing their work in service, I guess. And I feel like part of my role here is to be able to support anyone who feels like they're ready to feel supported in that role, because like we signed up for this, didn't we, Steve? I often laugh and say, before we came into this life, volunteers were requested, and I wholeheartedly put my hand up and said, yeah, me, I'll come and help in my usual way, not really reading the small print at the time. It's like, oh, okay, missed a little bit of the small print over here, because these are amazing, challenging, what appear to be chaotic times, but what a privilege to be here in these times and experiencing this. And so, yeah, I feel compelled really to be here to support anyone who feels like they're ready, if they're in that role of helping and supporting others in service, to be able to help them.
Beautiful. And the service comes out naturally when we tune into that. When we unravel and tune more into that self-realization, which is the realization that we are all of it, which was the original name for this podcast. And then I realized there was other people had names like that for podcasts. So that's why I changed it in the end to Isumataq, which feels even better.
Yeah.
But it's that sense. There's a word called tatvamasi, which is you are it. And
Nice.
that's what happens when we keep doing that work and tuning into ourselves and removing these layers and finding this connection with who we are and nature. And then service just becomes quite natural from that space. We don't even need to force it. And even that in itself is the service. So we don't even have to do anything specifically. But if we're called to do it, great. That's wonderful too.
It's about being, not doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we do our inner work, the more, I guess, it gives everybody permission to do that, doesn't it? To see what's possible, to be able to make those changes, and at the same time observing within us, if there is war in the world, if there is conflict in the world, where is there war and conflict internally for us? And that gives us an opportunity to be able to address that or explore it or resolve it in some way. Mm-hmm. So it's beautiful. It's always a work in progress, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there are so many people like holding the light in these incredible times for the change to happen, mm-hmm. the catalyst for the direction we're headed. And I am very positive about the future. I see it in such a positive light. This, as Bruce Lipton often mentions, this is a precursor to the change, but the chaos is part of the process. It's the birthing process. It's kind of the caterpillar to the butterfly. He talks about the imaginal cells, doesn't he? And the death of the caterpillar is the birth of the butterfly. And that's what I see is happening in the world right now. It's an incredible, incredible times.
Those people that may be listening to this right now and thinking, mm-hmm. it's difficult to change. It's painful. It's traumatic. It's just impossible. What would you say to those people that are perhaps really wanting to have this change, but maybe feel that way?
That does seem the case when we're giving the power to our conscious mind. So when we're seeing our conscious mind as being the all-powerful part of us, when we look at the difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and we think conscious mind is around 5% of our consciousness, something like that. Subconscious, 95%. So if we're focusing on, like making a change, a behavior change, a habit change, whatever it might be at that conscious level of the mind, then those experiences can be a reality. Change is difficult, it's painful, it takes a long time, it needs repetition. I need to have a big enough reason why I want to make that change, and I need to stick with it. And still, even with all that, doesn't guarantee the results. So you and I know, Steve, that when you are able to communicate and work at the subconscious level of the mind, shifting the programs, changing those, letting go of those layers of conditioning, then change becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And certainly with the PSYCH-K process, all of those are myths. Change can be quick, easy, fun, often. Doesn't need to take a long time at all. And you can simply focus then on taking action in alignment with what it is that you've changed. But as you mentioned, Steve, it's like, when you upgrade your computer, you have those new programs running. It's just a case of using them, activating them. You download an app on your phone. Okay, if it stays on your phone and you don't open it, it's not much use. So PSYCH-K is also not a magic wand. We download the new program, and action is an important part in many instances to be able to fully experience the results. But that's when we can focus on taking action, because it should be much easier when you've got the supportive beliefs or programs in place to be able to do so. So it's possible for anyone and everyone. Okay, that's what I would love people to know, is that if up until this point it's been difficult, it's been painful, and you maybe have a belief that this stuff works for other people and it doesn't work for me, okay, try it.
Yeah.
Try it. You know, what have you got to lose?
Yeah.
And then, you know, have the experience for yourself. I think one of the things that people say most often when they attend a workshop or even experience a PSYCH-K one-to-one session with a facilitator who's working professionally is, I'm blown away by how quick and simple and easy this is. Can it possibly be this quick and simple and easy? And the answer is always yes.
Mm-hmm.
I see it as it happens, you know, when we're teaching, and, you know, you've seen it in groups when you've come back and you've revisited the workshop. It's so often people say,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, you know, I've struggled for so many years and it's been so hard. And now I find out that it didn't have to be that way. It could be quick and simple and easy.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. And we can make it simple.
Definitely, 100%. Life is so much easier when things are simple, and we value simplicity.
Yeah. And
Like,
fun is the key too, because I was always so serious in
me
the
too.
early days of like, oh, we need to go there, we need
Me
to do all this
too.
stuff and go down into the depths, and then you
Me too.
realize, hey, you don't even need to go there many times. You just you just do the program, you do the update, and
Yeah.
it's fun. I
Yeah.
always laugh in every session
Yeah.
I have with somebody. I
Me too.
made that a strong intention at one day. I was like, okay, I'm done with this serious thing.
Yeah.
Now, from now onwards, every single session I have with somebody, we're going to laugh at least once.
Yeah.
And it could be the most traumatic thing going on and that they're working through, but we always laugh at some point. And it's just testament to how beautiful and simple and lighthearted it can be.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's welcome that in. You know, I, exactly the same as you, Steve, was from that place of seriousness and you've got to work hard at something and you've got to give it your all. You know, no, like lighten it up. You know, what you beautifully said, if it feels light, yeah, lean into it. If it feels heavy, no, I'm not going to give my energy to that in the same way as I did in the past, making things difficult and striving. No, let's enjoy life. It can be different. It doesn't have to be that way. Love it.
What's next for you, Sharon? What do you want to personally experience in your life?
So I think to make an even bigger difference than I'm already making. So one of the things I've been working on over the last couple of years is addressing beliefs around visibility, being more visible, writing a program to support coaches, facilitators, you know, those who are making a difference in the world, to be able to support them. PSYCH-K as one-to-one sessions is a part of that, but the program is to be able to support them through that, to be able to show up in the way that they want to be able to help others, but by the same measure in looking after themselves. So supporting others should not be at the sacrifice of not supporting ourselves. And I think that's one of the things that I see so often with those who are helping others, is that they naturally put others before themselves, but are finding themselves in these times being overwhelmed, exhausted, on the path to burnout. And that's not the way we can offer the best of ourselves. And if we reach the point of burnout, then we can't help anyone. So I think it's really redefining how we can be of service and at the same time thrive, you know, and really honor self-care, looking after ourselves. Self-care has been such an overused buzzword in the past, and you know, few years. But I think one of the things that I had like a realization about is, so often people talk about work-life balance, and I had this insight last year where who said that work and life should be different? You know, who decided that those things are separate? Life is life, right? So I've redefined it as work life, or as integration, life integration, where work is our gifts that we offer to the world, and we show up as whole, who we are, and offer those gifts in service to others, and at the same time honouring ourselves. So this is something I'm working on at the moment, because I feel really passionate about helping people who are already out there making a difference to be able to make a greater impact. So alignment is a key thing. Energy is one thing. So feeling energized, reclaiming energy for where we're losing energy, being in alignment, and also impactful. So creating a greater impact, if that's what people would like to do. So this is something I'm really enjoying creating at the moment.
I'd love to give some light to what you actually offer on top of what you just shared there.
Yes, which is a work in progress at the moment. So
it's
coming.
As I said earlier on, your workshop was one of the most transformational moments and very fundamental to so much that's happened in the last 7 years or so of my life. And it's just your teaching style and your ability to read the room and read the space and know the speed and direction and the way you listen. I would highly recommend anyone checking out your workshops in person if possible. However, something that came up in the last couple of years, is you're actually doing some version of your workshops online as well right now. So that would be amazing if somebody's in a different country perhaps and they would love to, get some of the amazing teachings from you, Sharon. How can people find that and find you?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Steve, for your kind words. I mean, it's always a gift to be able to teach, and to hear that, it's had such an impact on you is just, fills my heart with joy. It really does. So yes, in the UK, I teach in-person workshops where I'm based in Leeds, which is the middle of the country. Also in Dublin regularly, so about 3 times a year. In Scotland, I'm passionate about sharing it in the north. So in Glasgow, I have been teaching once a year. But also one of the things to mention is that another gift that PSYCH-K has brought into my life is the amazing Kazi, who you know really well, Steve, Kazi Dare, who there are 2 of us who are teaching PSYCH-K in the UK, and collaboration is at the centre of everything that we do together. Kazi tends to teach in London, in Bristol, so tending to teach in the south of the country. So when we're teaching the online workshop, which is for personal use only, really, but you're able to then learn the process to be able to integrate it in your own day-to-day personal life. Kazi and I we absolutely love teaching together whenever we can. So at the moment, all of the online workshops we teach together. So you get two instructors teaching. And if geographic constraints are an issue, then it's an amazing way to be able to access the workshop. In-person workshops, you'll see all of the scheduled dates on my own website, which I'm sure you'll put in the notes, Steve. It's just my name. So www.sharonlock.co.uk. You'll see the list of scheduled dates. And both of us offer one-to-one sessions as well. So you'll be able to read more about what we offer if you then visit the website.
You and Kazi together are amazing, and it's so fun to see you weave together. I've been in workshops with both of you at the same time and both separately with you, and so it's such a gift. And to share that online with the other community of people as well would be so special. And then hopefully they'll realize, okay, it's worth the travel. Let's go and do it in person as well, because that's next level. It's not to compare, but it's really next level to be in person doing that. I mean, I've seen people in the first day with the energy kind of just like, okay, feeling a bit heavy, maybe the color of the skin, and even you don't notice it then. even after the first night's sleep, after learning one of the balances and some of the processes and some of the information, they come back the next day and
It's
already,
amazing.
whoa, wow,
It's amazing.
radiating already. The skin looks different, the eyes look different, everything's
I
just come
know.
awake. And then by the end of the weekend, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother thing.
It's like from day one, not only are we learning, but also transforming. So 3 days of deep transformation alongside learning. And it's funny you say that, because I was teaching in Ireland, and actually it wasn't a basic workshop, it was a master facilitation workshop, which is 4 days once you've trained in the basic. And I just happened to say, in a kind of casual way on the morning of day one, I've always thought, because I see that, right? And what you've seen, I see that people walk in and they look a particular way. And by day 3 or whatever, they are radiant. You can see the difference. They've let go of so much. And so I just happened to say on the morning, I've always thought it'd be really great to do a before and after photo. And so I'm not expecting them to say anything. And so they all went, let's do it. So we did. We took a photo on the morning of day 1, and then we took a photo at the end of day 4. And, if you have a look at my Instagram, feel free to connect with me on Instagram. There is a before and after photograph. You might need to look down the grid a little bit to find it. It looks like they've just come out of a spa. They've had a weekend spa retreat. It's just phenomenal to see the light and the radiance, the glow, and the difference of 4 days. Like, who doesn't want that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who does not want that? Phenomenal. But it's always been anecdotal up until that point. Like, I could see it, like you could see it. But to actually see it in photograph is like even more profound, to say this was you guys. It was amazing.
But anyone that's listening to this right now and they may be feeling that energy, that's nothing's going to stop them. So it's like, is it now or whenever? Just go and find it, click the button, join one of the workshops.
Definitely.
You'll know if you're being called to it. I know that there was nothing that was ever going to stop me from taking that action. So,
and there are quite a few testimonials. So, don't just take our word for it. On Instagram and on YouTube and things, there are lots of testimonials. At the top of my Instagram, there's like a question: what advice would you give me if I'm considering? So we all know that feeling, don't we? Like, do I dive in? Do I not? There might be fear. There might be subconscious resistance to just going for it. Listen to other people's opinion. Don't just take our word for it. And if you feel the calling, then it's that wisdom within you, guiding you if you're listening to it. And if you're not able to attend an in-person workshop, then for sure explore the online workshop. And there is a transition price which honors the fact that you've attended the online. Certainly Kazi and I anyway do. That means you don't pay full price if you then go and attend the in-person basic, which means that then you can facilitate not only with yourself but with your friends, your family, your loved ones. So you'll know which is the right direction for you. Listen to that inner wisdom.
Thank you so much for your time, Sharon. It's amazing to connect with you.
I loved it. I've loved every moment. We need to come back together. There's so much more we could have talked
about. For sure. I mean, there were so many things coming up. We will do this for sure again. Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Steve, for giving me the possibility to be able to, share and just to be able to go with the flow of the conversation, because it's been, I've loved it.
Yeah, I love that too. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.